a lot of work is controlled by men who hate their lives. Basically, there's a lot of old men who hate their personal lives. They have no personal life. They hate their families, basically, and they resent you, the fact that you probably do like your life. So they want you in. And this is because this is how they see how life should be. Yo, everyone, welcome back. Brand new Techish in the building. It is me, Michael Bahane. I am the CEO of Pocket and Packet Jabs, and I am joined with
the CEO of Hustle Crew, Abadesi, in the house. What's up, everybody?
What's up? So, Abadesi, you had a momentous day yesterday. You directed, you didn't star in it. You wrote and directed your first ever play,
and
it went down yesterday.
My own play. We had an amazing director called TD Moya to help us with that. But yeah, yesterday was the first staged reading of my play, The First Woke War, and we had a sold out venue, which was really great. Thanks to our venue partners, Huckletree, by the way, which is a cool co-working space in the UK and Ireland. Check it out. And yeah, it was amazing. I started writing this play a year ago, really based on my own experiences navigating the tech world. And I just felt that the world was getting increasingly hostile towards diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I didn't understand why. And I wanted to create a story that would encourage all of us to have more empathy for each other. Both the people who are for it, and against it. Why not? Let's just listen to each other and try and see what we're afraid of and what we're upset about. And that's really what the play was all about. So yeah, it was cool for me as a writer to see the full story in front of an audience, because I wanted to know, are people going to laugh at the jokes that I think are funny? And are people going to at the plot twist? And yeah, it was really cool. It was really, really fun. And a lot of Black women came up to me after, and women of color, and they're just I feel really validated by that story. I realized what I went through is not just me. So yeah, it was really cool. And I'm hoping to have more readings and more performances soon.
That's dope. And then you fundraised through Kickstarter. What was that process like for people who want to have a creative project and get it from kind of 0 to 100? What was that like?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I'll say is you have to do it. You must do it. Set a realistic goal. I used ChatGPT a lot when I was planning my Kickstarter campaign. How much should I budget for actors, for producing, for this, that, and the other? Even really specific prompts, what are rehearsal spaces in London? How much would they cost? And, ideas on the campaign. I was originally going to just use my own money, profits from Hustle Crew, some of my own savings. And then I was just watching a TV show, and someone said, the first rule of producing is never use your own money. And I was like, yeah, actually, in Hollywood, they don't use their own money. They go around and get someone else's money. And in startups, people don't even really use their own money if they don't have to. They use their sweat equity, but they get someone else to invest. So I was like, let me, follow these signs from the universe. And I set a goal of 3,000, which was quite conservative. Because I think, ideally, I would have maybe needed 5K. And I think it has come around more to that number. But I was like, let me set an achievable goal. Because with Kickstarter, if you don't get all the money, you don't get anything. And
That's
we
crazy.
managed to exceed our target, 155% funded. Shout out to all the Kickstarter campaign funders, especially Arlen Hamilton, longtime listener of the show. So yeah, really, really cool. Yeah, fundraise, for sure. Fundraise, set up a crowdfunding campaign. You'd be surprised how many people in your network are waiting to support your projects. That's how I felt. I put this out in the Hustle Crew newsletter. I put it out on my personal Instagram. I ran some Instagram ads as well, which actually I thought were quite good ROI. I put £50, I don't know, that's $60, $70 to run a week-long campaign, just pushing my profile with the Kickstarter campaign link in my bio out to people who didn't follow me but were similar to my followers. And I got quite a few conversions from that onto the page. So yeah.
That's dope.
Highly
First
recommend.
Woke War coming to a theatre stage near you. Stay tuned, everyone.
Woo!
So you obviously worked very hard to make that happen, but apparently if it wasn't 60 hours in a week, it probably wasn't hard work enough, according to one of the founders of Google, Sergey Brin. So he released a memo I don't think he released a memo. There's a phenomenon now where a lot of tech CEOs' memos to their employees leaks. Basically, there's a lot of snitches in these companies. I think Zuckerberg was complaining about that happening at his company. But his one says, basically, competition has accelerated immensely, and the final race for AGI is afoot, essentially artificial general intelligence. I recommend being in the office at least every weekday. 60 hours a week is the sweet spot for productivity. A number of folks work less than 60 hours a week, and a small number put in the bare minimum to get by. This last group is not only unproductive, but can also be highly demoralizing to everyone else. So for context, obviously, Google has a current 3-day in-office policy, and they've laid off around 13,000 employees recently, and they posted a $25 billion profit just recently as last October, as it still continues to downsize and outsource full-time jobs, siphoning most of the budget towards AI. Do you think that it is appropriate for a company owner to say to its employees, who are very well paid, probably most of these AI engineers are on $500,000 comp at least,
Yeah.
to say this product that we're working on will determine the
Yeah.
future of the company. I need you lot to put in 60 hours a week, which is about 12 hours a day if you just work Monday to Friday. How would you feel about that one, Abba?
Do you know what? I feel so torn about this. I'm not going to lie. Because I know there are a lot of people who would be like, oh, like soft life, like avoiding burnout. Is this, sustainable? But I feel really torn about it because I just feel like I'd be being like inauthentic or disingenuous if I didn't like say that I understand where this mindset is coming from. My first ever job in tech, I joined a company 1 year before the IPO, and I believed that this company was going to make me a millionaire, and I believed that we were going to change the world. And I was 24 years old, and I had very little life outside of the office. The people that I worked with were my friends. They're still my friends today. I was literally in Chinatown last week, and my first boss that hired me into tech walked into the restaurant I was eating with my friend, and I was like, hey, so good to see you. And I was happy to work 12-hour days, like literally 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. I was with my teammates. And would I do that now that I'm in my 30s? Probably not, as just an employee, but like 10 years ago, ish, whatever time it was, I was very happy to do that. I really believed in that. And I kind of saw friends who worked like in the civil service or other industries, teachers, whatever it was, who had like very set hours, very clear holidays, and they were happy with that. But they were also happy with having a lower payday in the end. Whereas I was like, I want the big bucks. And I think there's only one way to get it. And, fair enough. Maybe I was idealistic or sipping the Kool-Aid. I'd watch The Social Network. I was like, we're going to be the next, I don't know, Zuckerberg or Winklevoss twins. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't think people have historically been drawn to startups because they want a soft life. I really don't think that. What do you think?
I think one, with your story, obviously there's a reason why you were, they hired young, maybe because when you're young, you do have that idealism and you have less of a kind of need for kind of work-life balance. Like you said, you probably wouldn't do that now. But also, there's also the idea that, what kind of role are you in? Are you in a profit sharing role or an equity based role where your efforts will lead to you enriching yourself beyond your salary? If that's where you're at, I don't necessarily think it's the end of the world for you to grind 60 hours. I wouldn't say. I think that's unsustainable. Yeah. That's almost 12 hours a day. I don't believe that you can sustain that and not burn out.
That's normal in a lot of startups. That's very normal. Very normal.
I hear it, but it doesn't mean it's right. Do you know what I'm saying? Just because it's normalized, what I'm saying, doesn't mean it's a the optimal strategy.
But can you expect to build a unicorn working 9 to 5, like a 40-hour week? Like, do you really think you're going to become like a category defining company? Like, you want to win the AI race? You think you're going to do that working a 40-hour week? Like, mediocre effort does not achieve extraordinary results. Extraordinary effort achieves extraordinary results.
Well, that's what I'm saying. In this situation, I can understand if he feels like, listen, we are in a risky time for the company where whoever gets the AGI could potentially wipe out the rest of the companies. Obviously, there's a concept that AGI essentially is going to be this all-knowing machine that can answer all queries and be able to kind of solve all problems, basically, and can be like the smartest PhDs in the world, times 10, and can think about problems that will take 1,000 years to figure out and do it in 2 minutes. Is that on the cards? I'm skeptical, but let's say it is on the cards. Let's just assume that what he's saying is correct, right? That if whoever gets there first gets an advantage that you can barely even cease to imagine, right? So I don't know. I'm conflicted. I think, honestly, I don't know. I think you also have to realize that Google is a profit-making machine. And is it necessary to tell your employees to like, yo, we need you in for 70 hours, 60 hours a week when you've already spitting out like $30 billion of profit last quarter? And you yourself are basically
because they want to be a multi-trillion company. That's the thing. Like, it's such a different mindset. It's like once you completely like dial into like the machine of capitalism and no longer think ethically, morally, or about who you are or aren't oppressing or impacting. It's like in cartoons when people's like eyes become dollar signs.
Yeah. And listen, also don't get it twisted, man. Like, these Google employees who are super senior engineers, they can work anywhere they want. So it's not like these are like entry-level folks who have no leverage. They can leave, but they want to stay and keep their $500,000 comp, $1 million comp. I just don't think it's sustainable to do that for long periods of time. I think it's unrealistic. Even when I've tried, I couldn't. Even in my younger days, eventually I would burn out. Like, I even remember during exam periods at uni, and eventually I got to the stage where like I couldn't read words. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I just couldn't read. I was getting a headache. So like trying to do that, consistently for 3 quarters or for a year, I don't know. Maybe these Google engineers are superhuman. I don't know. But what I will say is,
go on.
What I will say is, I saw a meme going around where people were talking about Jamie Dimon, who is the CEO at JP Morgan, and he had a memo
Mm.
saying like, listen, I want everyone in the office. And somebody was like, a lot of work is controlled by men who hate their lives. Basically, there's a lot of old men who hate their personal lives. They have no personal life. They hate their families, basically. And they resent you, the fact that you probably do like your life. So they want you in. And this is because this is how they see how life should be. Now, I don't think it's a thing about men who hate their. I mean, there are a subsection of men who hate their lives, but I think what people don't realize is there are people out there where work is their life. And if you don't have that
Yes.
mindset, it's very hard to even understand, like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't understand. Like, I want to go home, see my kids. I want to go home, be with my partner, have fun, be with my friends. But to some people, work is their life. And they tend to be the ones, through other advantages as well, who get to the top because they're insane. They don't care about anything else but this.
Yeah.
And like, you can't beat those people if you are the kind of person really and truly who's just like, do you know what? Like, I want to come in and just do the bare minimum. What do you think though? Do you think there's some truth to that? That there are people out here who just hate their lives and they're the ones who are basically calling the shots on most people?
I think it's like an oversimplification. I definitely felt that like a lot of the people that wanted to return to the office because the office is a domain where they felt important and powerful and purposeful, whereas the home, the domestic scene, was a place where they felt very redundant because they'd spent decades climbing the corporate ladder, leaving, maybe their partner at home. I'm making like very, traditional heteronormative gender role assumptions here, but you know, that was maybe like the vibe. So sitting at home, just feeling redundant was like, this isn't for me. I want to feel important. I want to feel useful. So they went back to the office. So like, if that meme is derivative of that, then yeah, I guess I kind of see where it's coming from. But of course, there are people who love their job more than their personal lives. I mean, growing up, I didn't see my dad anywhere near as much as I wanted to. And, God rest his soul. Like, I know he made the choices that he needed to make for us, but there were people who would be like, oh, their dad would come to after school clubs, their dad would do this, their dad would do that. And I was really like jealous of that. But at the same time, if my dad didn't work as hard as he did, would I have had the education that I've had? I have a very privileged life compared to the typical woman from Nigeria or the Philippines of my age, the countries where my parents grew up. Compare my life to the average that they had. So, I think it's a bit more complicated than that, is what I'm trying to say. Like, yes, there are people who are obsessed with their jobs and their jobs is their life, but I don't think it's like as simple as saying like they simply chose to be obsessed with their work and they didn't have to choose that. They could have chosen to be obsessed with their family. I think there's like layers to it, you know what I mean? And like, yeah, it's complicated for many people. But I do think shows like, industry do a really great job of exploring that. Like, where is that coming from? Is it the immigrant mindset that's forcing people to be obsessed with their jobs? Is it like some kind of insecurity? Like, and then I'm rewatching 30 Rock at the moment, and they like satirize that because, like the boss of the channel just wants to be the head of the channel, and he doesn't believe he can have relationships, he doesn't believe he can be friends with the team. I don't know, man, it's a complicated thing.
I definitely think that that level of obsession does come from insecurity oftentimes. It's the same in the gym. Like, there's guys in the gym who you just know, it's like, who hurt you, bro? Like, who hurt you? Because you are in here just, the obsession is insane. Yeah, the calorie deficit, and I need this much protein, and I'm here. And listen, there's nothing wrong with looking after your health, of course, in it. But like, there are some people who make things their whole lives, and it's to run away from other parts and other aspects of themselves, basically. The remote thing is funny because look how many divorces came out of COVID. People really were like, oh my God, who the fuck did I marry? Pardon my French. Like, I hate my kids. I don't even like these people. I've been going to the office and been able to, not be around them for this long. No, but think about it. Like, especially back in the day, you could go to work and like not see people, your loved ones, especially if there wasn't smartphones at the time, back in the day, and not see your loved ones for like 13 hours of the day. Like, you might go to after work drinks. So COVID, obviously that's not as extreme because there are phones, but COVID was a wake up call for a lot of people and in a lot of relationships. They were like, oh shit, you must have seen that, man. Come on, do you not know anybody who after COVID, the COVID breakups are real? People were like, oh, my days. Like,
I think a lot of relationships like were tested in COVID because it's like we're always role playing, right? I think life is inherently very performative. I'm not just saying that because I was at a play last night, but like I think in general, it's like we show up in spaces and then we take on the role. Like in this space, I'm the role of middle sibling. In this space, I'm the role of caregiver. In this space, I'm the role of like princess, brat, whatever it might be. And I think a lot of people during COVID, if their relationship was founded on this idea of like, I play the role of princess and you play the role of Prince Charming, you can't do that 24/7. Like, you can't do that into like lockdown number 3. At some point, like the mask will fall off and then you're just left with each other. And that is, I think, where a lot of relationships started to collapse because it's like, damn, I don't put that mask back on because I don't like what I see or I don't like what I'm seeing. So yeah, I definitely saw that a lot. Yeah. Not necessarily a bad thing, by the way. Like, I do think there's so much shame
Yeah.
and stigma around divorce. When I was a kid, because I'd only ever known my parents as divorced, I remember thinking like, God, it was just normal for me. There are people who were just like, I would never get divorced. I would never get divorced. As whoever I marry, I'm going to marry them forever. And I was like, that's so dumb. What if they're like abusive? What if they fall in love with someone else? You're just going to stay married because you don't want the label of being divorced? Like, divorce is just a choice that two people make when something's no longer working. Like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you 90% of the way. It's just that I've been to weddings where they got divorced like a year later, and I'm like, can I get a refund on all the money that I put into my suit and to my travel accommodation? Because you gotta last at least more than a year, bro. I'm sorry, I need a refund now.
You want insurance?
That's
Wedding guest insurance. Wedding guest insurance.
I need insurance. Somebody in the insurance industry invent that product where if you spend money for a wedding, travel, especially if it's an overseas one, and they don't make it more than a year, you get some sort of money back. Come on. But yeah, no.
got your holiday.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about was this concept. It's called vibe coding, and it's been trending on Twitter or X, where a lot of developers are basically just building apps and games using Cursor or Replit and not necessarily knowing what they're doing, but they're just going with the vibes, and they're ending up building a lot of kind of cool tools and apps that they wouldn't have been able to build historically. So Peter Levels, obviously the famous indie hacker, the guy behind Nomad List and Remote OK, he built a game called Fly.Pieta. I'll put the link in the show notes. And basically, it's like a little flight simulator, a very little fun game. He built it. It's all in the browser. You don't need a console, whatever. And he obviously acknowledges that, listen, without this AI stuff, I would never be able to have built this. And he's already scaled it to 50K a month in ads. Basically, there's about 10,000 players playing at the same time. And you can now buy ads like on the Jumbotron or on balloons or whatever, like all in the game in it. So obviously, listen, he's obviously very adept at spinning out apps and making money. But what it has taught me and fully confirmed to me is that the present and the future for entrepreneurship is all about distribution. Everything else now is pretty much a commodity. Your software is a commodity. I wouldn't say newsletter because that's distribution, but I'll say everything that historically would have been seen as like, oh, this is my defensible moat. It's all gone. It's about who has distribution. This is the guy who has got, I don't know, 300,000 followers on Twitter, and he's pretty much able to like spit out these apps. Most of them don't work, but the ones that do are real like outside success. And he's able to get the first 100 to 1,000 users. And I'm trying to, I had a conversation with somebody who I invested in their startup, and I was just trying to ram home that point where I was like, listen, it's about community, it's about people, it's about distribution. The software thing, get it going, but it's the bare minimum now. Because in 2 years' time, in 18 months' time, somebody's gonna just go into their phone. They could probably do it now and say, give me a clone of your app, and they will have it ready. So what is gonna make you unique? Do you know what I'm saying?
Audience.
So yeah, it's audience. And we knew this historically, that audience was powerful. Like obviously this is why we do this podcast, for example, right? But software still had some power. There was still some sort of, okay, yeah, it takes a while to build this app. We're going to get these developers, we're going to pay them all this money because we can go to investors and raise money based on the app. It's like, no, that means nothing anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? So what's your thought on the distribution-led future? What advice would you give to founders, or like what are you thinking about this whole type of stuff?
I'm literally someone that had a sold out event last night for an idea that I just pulled out of my imagination about a year ago.
Dope.
I never studied theater writing. I didn't study producing, but I just thought I'm going to do a play about startups because I love startups and I love diversity and inclusion as a conversation within the ecosystem. It was very moving for me to like look around this room and be like, wow, like 80 people bought tickets, to this event. And here are like actors, people who've like starred in TV shows and film, bringing my story to life. And I definitely believe that the real fuel of capitalism is and will always be consumers, people, right? Like, it doesn't matter like what technology we're obsessed with and what innovation is happening. Like, what we're all really fighting for is attention. And if you're someone who is able to gather attention and direct attention and convert attention, like, you'll always be really successful. Like, I personally stopped trying to grow my Twitter/X audience a few years ago, like intentionally, because I was just like, I just don't feel like I'm getting a ton of value from this platform. I'd rather try and grow like Instagram or emails. To be honest, I'd even try to grow LinkedIn. And I was like, I want to go where my audience is. I want to go where I can like convert attention meaningfully towards the metrics that matter for me. But yeah, like I agree with everything that you're saying. If I was a founder right now, to be honest, if I was like anyone trying to sell anything, even just like as a professional, I'd be trying to think, where do I have the most leverage to get attention on me and then convert that attention into opportunities, collaborations, and I'd just be there. storytelling, sharing,
Yeah.
observing the trends, jumping on the trends, looking at people who are good at getting attention there, copying them. Like, that's what I'd be doing.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So we've turned this podcast into a podcast about guys and gals that are writing stuff. So I'm writing a book as well, right? I've been messing around with a little short novel, few ideas here and there,
intern.
and I'll send you a copy. Don't worry. I basically got invited to Bloomsbury Publishers like headquarters. They basically were doing a call out for like first time writers. I submitted, but why this is relevant is that during this day where we were kind of given the ropes about how publishing works, finding an agent, etc., they had a whole segment dedicated to social media. There was a whole segment about like, how do you as a writer, as a published author, get your work out there? And they gave examples of writers who did that and TikToks that they made and Instagrams that they made. And I'm like, it's a funnier world now where you would think that the traditional publishing industry, which has all the kind of, levers of power that can get you into the bookshops, that can get you on TV, maybe, they are now telling their writers, if you ain't doing the social media thing, you are doing yourself a disservice, and maybe we can't even help you. And there was a part of me that felt like maybe they brought me here because they know man's got clout. You get me? I mean, I'm sure the work was great, but they might have brought me here because they were like, yeah. So I thought but at the same time, I'm not mad at that because I'm always a big believer, and I did a TikTok about this where like, you've got to ride the wave. Don't be mad at the wave existing. Get your surfboard and ride the wave. Like, I used to be that person where I would be like, oh, I don't agree. This is how things are. Oh yeah, let me just sit there and just hate on it. But I'm like, you know what? If the world is basically trending towards people with following and distribution can get what they want out of the world, then I'm gonna be that person. I'm not gonna sit there and just complain about it. And if I don't want to be that person, which is no problem whatsoever, I'm not gonna complain about the fact that I didn't get what I wanted. Do you get what I'm saying? If I was like, okay, I want to be super private, I don't want to put myself out there at all, I want to be super duper hidden, low profile. Okay, but then I can't get mad when nobody knows what I'm working on, and I've decided to forego all of those opportunities that are given to people who have put themselves out there, at a cost, because it doesn't come cost free. There's obviously downsides to not being private, right? So yeah, it's just interesting, that even in this little, hoity-toity publishing world, even they're like, yeah, social media, and I'm just like, oh my lord, what like?
But I've known that. Is that really news to you? I feel like that to me. I'm very skeptical. I've been so skeptical about this since like the late 2010s because I just feel like there are so many collaborations that came my way because people were like, will you post about it in Hustle Crew?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
But when I went to this day for like, a 9 to 5 session, I didn't think that 2 hours would be about social media. Like, I thought we would be sitting here learning about the intricacies of the publishing world.
But can I just say,
like, I was like, 2 hours and gone.
But I was just like, sorry, so now as an artist, you have to come up with the art and you need to do the marketing? I'm sorry, what is the brand bringing? What is the brand bringing? Because at the end of the day, if I'm building 500,000 followers on YouTube, I'm going to self-publish. I will find a manufacturer. I will print the books. I will like find a distributor. I'll do what clout can you give me? Like, I don't even care about the prizes. It's not like Penguin Books or Bloomsbury or like HarperCollins is going to get you the Pulitzer. That's a completely different independent body. Like, what are you bringing to the table? Like, publishers are like digging their own graves now. Like, hey, 100%. Build an audience. That's so dumb.
You know what though? It's still a bit of a mafia because I remember when Tim Ferriss tried to do a distribution deal with Amazon where Amazon would publish it, would create the book for him, and he could bypass traditional publishers. And what they did is, I think the publisher said, okay, we're going to leverage our relationships with bookshops and make sure that you're not in the bookshops, basically. So it's like, okay, that's not the same equivalent as self-publishing, but like when you try to cut these publishers out, it's not as cut and dry as you think, especially at a massive scale. And also, to be honest, what people are going for are massive advances. If you've got 1 million followers and you go to a publisher, you might want to say, listen,
yeah, but an advance isn't even that big. What are we going to give you? Yeah, but then you're like locked into a deal that you might not like. And what if you actually just try to make 300K over like 3 to 5 years on your own terms through your own brand partnerships? I'm sorry, like if you've already got all those followers online, you can easily make 300K over a few years with the right brand partnerships, with a few speaking gigs here and there. Like that's not like an unheard of amount of money in advertising and marketing, speaking engagements and consulting. No way.
No, I agree with you. So shout out to the gatekeepers. Your time is running out.
Do you know what? Now I've literally just got a business idea. Because like there should be like the the non-traditional or unconventional like publishing path, like how you distribute your art to the world, and like a little collective of people, and you just support people to do it like non-traditionally through their own audiences. That could be
I didn't
good.
understand that at all. Run that by me one more time.
Basically, like you get people who have like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of followers and aren't
Okay.
interested in making some kind of art, whether that's a book, whether that's a show, whether
Okay.
that's whatever. And then instead of being like, hey, like go to the big agencies because then they'll put you with the big production companies or like whatever it is, you like try and do it like the indie way, get the idea like very far along and further develop the indie way, and then when it's like almost ready, then you try and sell it and you own more of it and you've like retained more of the control, and then you can sell it for a higher price to the big distributors.
So what, like kind of
whether
like a
that's a
collective,
book, whether
basically.
that's a show, whether that's whatever.
Yeah, I think so. It doesn't have to even be a business idea. You can build those relationships with people and just say, listen, let's just informally support each other's work, basically, and whatever. I guess that's kind of what me and you do to each other as well. So I guess we just need 8 more people. Who's got 100k followers wants to join us?
Who's in?
Who's in? All right, cool. We'll leave that episode there. Thank you for listening, everyone. We'll be back next week for brand new and more techish. Subscribe to our YouTube where you can see us visually. Subscribe on our Instagram, our threads, YouTube. And we will catch you soon. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.